Hello everyone, welcome to the Legal Debrief. This is GV Anand Bhushan. As we do with all our other videos, we take a complex subject matter and break it down into a simple 5-minute video. The topic of today's discussion is due diligence reports, and the one important issue or the one important point that most young lawyers forget about during this process. So first question, what is the process? Typically a due diligence is triggered, as we're all aware, typically during private equity or venture capital deals, or otherwise during M&A transactions. Now, the process for consummating these deals are typically a 3-step process. Firstly, there is a term sheet that is negotiated, which is a summary agreement, several terms non-binding, some definitely are binding. Step 2 is the actual due diligence report, the topic of today's discussion. And the third is the definitive transaction documents, the share purchase agreement, the shareholders agreement, various closing transaction documents. Now, what is the point of today's video? The most important fact is that while the term sheet and the definitive documents, that's step 1 and step 3, are heavily negotiated, very tightly drafted, the elephant in the room is no investor typically takes the time and effort to read that entire 250, 300-page report, which is the blood and sweat of many young lawyers as they find out and list the non-compliances. What happens in this, and what do people use the DDR for? Typically, the investor or the fund focuses on the executive summary. It's a 2-page, 3-pager summarizing the findings. And that 3-pager is the subject matter of a lot of the negotiations and how the CPs, CSs, indemnities, the reps and warranties are actually negotiated in the transaction documents. Now, what is that one point that the young lawyer forgets? The number one point that the lawyer forgets is don't frame it as a list of compliances or non-compliances. You also have to frame it as a risk and remediation plan, or where important, when the risk is sufficiently significant, where there's a business continuity risk, it potentially veers even into a valuation related discussion. Now, what do I mean essentially when we talk about framing the list of non-compliances as a risk profile? Every fund, like for example, if we're talking about a venture capital fund, these are early stage companies, Series A, they're fairly new, they've been in business for a short while. These funds typically have a higher appetite for non-compliance as long as there's no business continuity risk. Conversely, on the other end of the spectrum, you will have a merger and acquisition transaction where even if the risk is minimal, even if the risk is remediable, the acquirer will insist that the target company gets everything in order before the transaction is completed. So always keep in mind who you're representing. Is it a late stage private equity type fund? Is it an early stage venture capital investor? Is this an M&A transaction which is a 100% acquisition where they would want everything in order before the transaction is consummated? And this framing of the discussion, not just as non-compliances, but a risk and reward approach, a remediation plan, a potential strategy where it would impact valuation. If we lawyers are able to frame the discussion and frame our findings in such a manner, this would be of greater benefit to our clients, and it leads to a more healthier and productive dialogue. Thank you again for watching, and if you like this video, please subscribe, and we look forward to interacting with you in future. Thank you.